Hello and welcome to Films and That. My name's Sam Hall. Okay, so picture the scenario. It's the night after a house party and I'm fairly hungover. The host of the party sits us all down and gets us to watch this new Brazilian film that's doing the circuit. Something's getting all these rave reviews. I remember seeing it on the shelf at Blockbuster. Remember Blockbuster? Anyway, after the credits rolled, I remember we all sat down stunned almost, like just contemplating for what seemed like over 5 minutes in silence. The film I'm referring to, if you hadn't already guessed it by the title, is The City of God. And in this episode of Core Concepts, I want to talk about the impact of the images we see, how they can overwhelm us emotionally, leave us stunned, how they can translate something that can't always be said with words. And it is for those reasons that I want to talk about City of God, otherwise known as Cidade de Deus.
This review contains spoilers.
If you haven't seen it already, go check out City of God. It was co-directed by Fernando Meirelles and Katia Lond, and it was also inspired by a novel written by Paulo Lins, and it's partially inspired by true events. The real City of God is a slum district, or favela, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Renowned for being almost completely overrun with criminal activity, the police are usually too afraid to enter the district without heavily armed backup. It's been described as a war zone and a safe haven for drug lords. Although the district itself has improved over the past 10 years, the fabulous Rio has struggled to shake off the reputation of its slum districts. Most devastating of all is the fact that children, often at a very young age, are inducted as soldiers into gang wars. So the City of God transports us back to the 60s and 70s in these slum regions. Unfortunately, things weren't much better then either. Flooding, arson, poverty and unemployment had created an underclass in Rio, which the government had limited resources to rehouse. Many were moved into the City of God, a slum with few public services or infrastructure. This is where our story begins, told from the perspective of the brave but peace-loving boy named Rocket, referring to the firecracker kind, not the NASA kind. Equally important in this story is the aspirational Little Dice, more widely known in later life as Little Zay. All Rocket knows is he doesn't want to be a hood or a cop, but Little Dice, he knows exactly what he wants. He wants to rule the criminal underworld in the slum, and he will stop at nothing to achieve it. So we have our protagonist, Rocket, and our antagonist, Little Zay. Both of them run parallel yet separate lives, and we watch as they grow up. Rocket knows all about Little Zay because he's a local celebrity. He also knows that Little Zay killed his older brother, Goose, who was also a hoodlum. Little Zay doesn't know much about Rocket. He knows he exists, but he refers to him as Kid most of the time, only has a passing memory. Rocket isn't even considered a threat to Little Zay, which is amazing, really, because Little Zay considers everyone a threat. Everyone, of course, except his best friend, Benny. Benny is the polar opposite of Zay in so many ways. Both are aspirational gangsters, but Benny is more content. He's popular, beloved, handsome and cool. Zay is at the top because he fears no one. He is respected because he is feared. This of course creates some tension between the two friends. But the point at which the film anchors into total chaos, the eponymous third act, is when Benny is mistakenly assassinated at his own leaving party. Zay was the real target, but the assassin's stupid mistake would lead to the biggest conflict the City of God had ever seen. There are other major characters in this story. Zay's rival Carrot, and Carrot's greatest soldier Knockout Ned, a former soldier and excellent marksman with a personal grudge against Zay. There's also Angelica, Benny's lover and Rocket's fantasy girl. There's Tiago, the Runts, Shorty, Shaggy. The film is about more than just a story, it's a world that's separate from our own. Most of the performers are first-time actors, unknowns. A lot of them grew up in the slums. Meirelles and Lund wanted to create a sense of authenticity, and I think that this is where the film's greatest strength lies. We are peering into this world. This isn't just a story about different paths of a parallel life. It's a cliche to say it, but the City of God is a character in its own right. We see how the society functions from the bottom up, how the crime industry operates, and how people are still able to live and enjoy their lives from one day to the next. The fear of being robbed, even killed, is part of daily life that these residents of the slums have to contend with. And it's a real testament to this film that this has been translated so well and so expertly through the medium. You don't just get to understand life in the City of God through the kinetic energy of the editing and the documentary-like yet flashy cinematography. You live it. You get to know what it's like to not know what dangers lie around the corner. But you also understand the highs these people get from life. It goes some way to explain why these people are willing to put up with it. The City of God is full of life just as much as it's filled with death. City of God captures extreme poverty that was existent in the slums, and I guess still is. But it also gives off a kind of glamour. It's sort of difficult to explain, but when the film first came out, it was compared to Goodfellas. It was called the Brazilian Goodfellas, you know. And I don't think this is the most insightful examination, but I do think that both films really give away that sense of that diamond in the rough feel. A world of hedonistic joy that is as addictive as the cocaine it manufactures. There are moments of terror, but there are also moments of pure ecstasy. Like, for example, the moment Rocket shares a kiss with Angelica. It may be an all too brief moment for him, but that image lasts a lifetime. It's a moment he'll never forget, even if ultimately it doesn't pay off for him. By contrast, the darker notes can be just as effective and all too harrowing. Viewer discretion advised. Perhaps the single most shocking scene involves Little Zay confronting the Runts, a gang of fearless yet naive children who dare to hold up stores in Little Zay's territory. Zay, by this point in the film, has already been established as a psychopath. Even as a child, he explored his sadistic tendencies by murdering captives during a burglary, something even his fellow gangmates wouldn't dare commit unless they had to. Returning to the scene in which he confronts the Runts, the film doesn't shy away from the tragic reality of life in the favela. After taunting two of the Runts during the confrontation, he proceeds to shoot them both in their feet, then forces a younger member of his own gang to choose one child to murder. Clearly, this moment is designed to sober you from the drug-like high that most of the rest of the film gives through its kinetic energy. This is a moment of genuine horror. It smacks you back down to the ground, head first. Moments like this are what makes cinema, cinema. CCTV will give you an example of real life being acted out before your eyes. But the purpose of a film, be it documentary or fiction, or even a painting, book or photograph, is to make you feel the moment. So few films are able to achieve this kind of moment. Films like City of God don't come around often. These films were a dime a dozen in the 60s and 70s, but in the modern era they just don't come around often enough. I'm talking about films that really stick in the mind. City of God was a huge success. It was followed with a TV series which ran for 3 seasons called City of Men. But Meirelles and Lund never quite followed up on the success of the film. Not quite on an international level anyway. However, if I had made a film even half as impressive as City of God and never made another film, I could die a happy man. That's it for this time on Films and That. Please like and subscribe, and viva la vida!